This is Advisor 3.0, a show designed to help you as a financial advisor elevate your professional practice, transform your clients' lives, and take your business to the next level. I am Abraham Okusoya. Welcome to the show. It's not uncommon these days to see financial planning firms that are happy just ticking along. And hey, there is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I'll be honest, I get seriously energized when I meet businesses that are in growth mode. That's exactly where today's guests are. James Mackay, James Mackay, and Chris Hindle are the co-founders and directors of Frazer James, a Bristol-based financial planning firm with a bold vision to redefine financial advice. James, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Abraham. It's great to be here.
It's wonderful to have you guys on the show. Obviously, I have known you guys and the business, for a while now. We actually met from your previous businesses. So, but take us, for the purpose of our audience, take us back to the creation of the business.
Yeah, so maybe I'll take this one. We created the business in a pub in Bristol, funnily enough, as all good business plans come about. Chris and I knew each other from prior workplaces, and we both started chatting about how we could do a better job setting things up by ourselves and what we wanted to do. And so we made the bold decision to start a financial planning business with 0 clients, with not huge amounts of expertise. We were in our late 20s, but we were young and idealistic. So it all started there.
So can you give us a sense of the career journey that led to that point?
Yeah, I can start with that one if you want, Abraham. I went through an accountancy program at university, and I think within a couple of months realized very quickly I didn't want to be an accountant. But I had the great fortune of a workshop that was put on by the university, of which Jason Butler attended. And I remember him talking, the very outspoken Jason Butler, talking about the role of a...
You're bigging him up now. Jason, listen to this podcast. He's losing his... Anyway, carry on.
But it planted a seed in my mind around how you could combine, I guess, the art of financial planning with the science as well. And that really turned me on to the idea of financial planning. So I was fortunate to get a job at Jones Hill. Was my first employer. It was a good firm. It was a great firm. And if I remember, my job title was the assistant administrator. So I was making tea for the assistant administrator effectively, but I was just happy to get started. And that was 3 wonderful years I had there, slowly progressing through administration, power planning, and subsequently into practice management. Following that, I found through Next Gen Planners Ovation Finance, a company I hold in high regard, and had a wonderful couple of years there, cutting my teeth and learning different sides of financial planning in a more holistic way. But through Next Gen Planners, I sort of got that entrepreneurial itch, and also, connected to James in the famous pub that he talked about before. So I think going back, sort of our first 6 years or so, we were both employed, working and sort of learning the craft and the trade in good financial planning firms.
That's great. So you started the firm, forgive me, 3 years ago, thereabouts?
5 years ago.
5 years ago. Gosh.
Yeah, time flies.
Wow. where does the time go? So this would have been just before lockdown that you set up the business.
Yeah, we timed it perfectly. So 3 months before COVID, we kicked off. Chris, I think, was on holiday in Cuba. Chris, is that right? And markets were plummeting investments were plummeting for the few clients that we had after 3 months, and it all felt like a big mistake at that point.
Wow, that's incredible. And so the idea. What was the idea at the time? What is it that you wanted to do differently? Chris, you talked about growing up in good firms, and so what is it that you wanted to do differently with the business?
Do you want to take that one, James?
Yeah, so we had quite a mixed bag history. Similar to Chris, I ended up at uni doing something that I decided not to go into. Bounced around a few different firms as I got qualified, and the one thing that stayed the same for both Chris and I throughout was that we were incredibly keen on financial planning as being really where the huge amount of the value was. And the thing that we wanted to do differently at the time was probably serving younger clients rather than just at retirement, which I know not every firm focuses on, but is the bread and butter of many financial advice businesses. We thought there was a gap there that we could plug into and try and attract, and so that's where we started.
Wow. And is it working out that way? You wanted to serve younger clients. Would you say that the average age of your client is significantly lower than what you see in other planning firms?
Yes, ultimately, yeah, it is quite different. I say our average age, we've probably got the data on this, although I don't have it to hand, is probably somewhere around late 40s. And, ultimately, our ideal at that time and where we thought we would get some really good traction was with much younger clients. So we have, gradually worked with, naturally you pick up people who are, closing in on retirement and want advice. And we've taken on those clients because ultimately I think it's an incredibly important time in life where we can add a lot of value. And we've also just realized, commercially, as idealistic as we were in serving, 30-year-olds, the commercial aspect of it is tougher, and there is a reason why there is an advice gap and why it's a tough nut to crack. So I think naturally with Chris and my age, maybe we attract slightly younger type of client, but we've got a huge mix of clients from a age, background, all over the country as well. So it probably, the original sketch out of Frazer James's business plan probably hasn't transpired to be quite accurate. But, we're always looking at what we can do further to try and minimize that advice gap and try and work with a mix of clients.
I think the story there is, any plan doesn't necessarily survive its first punch. And I think we learned a lot in the early, months and years around the challenges perhaps that come with working with particularly young clients, perhaps those that are earlier on in their career that have lesser assets and maybe lesser income, and their needs and their focus and the service proposition to meet those needs in a profitable way can be challenging. So like many advice businesses, we've probably graduated up the age, the income and the wealth spectrum, but are still maybe premature relative to other advice businesses in terms of that typical client profile for us. But we think about those sort of ambitious accumulators, those who are serious about building wealth for them and their families, for building security, building stability, but also living life now and enjoying as much as that as possible. And we find that still a sweet spot that sometimes is overlooked and underserved, where we can be a great value to be a partner for them on their journey.
Yeah, it's kind of I'm trying to think about it like a bit of contradiction. So as in a good way, is what I'm trying to say. So you guys are young. You are basically you're in your 30s. I want to say you're basically half the age of a typical financial advisor. Okay, maybe slightly older. which means that actually your value proposition, just viewed from that lens, will be attractive to older clients in their 60s, and 70s, even, because it is almost guaranteed that you're going to outlive them, and it makes sense that you're going to be around. Your career is going to outlive their lifetime. So that's great. But then you have this, obviously desire to serve younger clients who can't, for the most, in many, 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 many cases, afford to pay for this, for the service. But they also come with a different dimension, which means that if they can pay, if you can find the commercial proposition that works, their lifespan, what's the word? Lifetime value is much bigger than the older client. It's a very challenging puzzle to try and solve.
And I think the right answer we found is a blend and a balance between the two. We probably settle on about 35 to 40% of those younger, ambitious accumulators, and maybe 50 to 60% of those who are a little bit later stage in their career and their wealth journey. But we're always conscious of having that long-term approach, planting the seeds today that, all being well, we will be doing this for another 20, 25 years, to see the fruits of that labor grow over, the decades to come. I think that's something James and I shared as a value when we first got started, thinking really long-term about this and the impacts that we're looking to have and create, over multi-decades.
Great stuff. So 5 years in, let's talk some numbers. Give us a sense of where the business is today, who's in the business, the people. Let's talk a little bit about clients, and then maybe we can talk about some KPIs, revenue, that sort of thing. Give us a sense of.
Yeah, sure. So maybe I'll go through the people, and then Chris, if you want to take the numbers. But so we are 6 people in the business. There's Chris and I, who are kind of the founders, and Chris and I have very different roles, which again is probably quite different from your average business. Instead of setting up as 2 advisors to go out and find clients, actually I've always been the quote unquote advisor, client facing, and Chris has always been on the operations side and the power planning. Chris is a fully qualified advisor and incredibly technical at it, but enjoys the kind of the business side, the back end side. So we both have different roles within the business. And then effectively we have 4 full-time staff, and that's only just recently been the case, having hired 3 new staff in the last 6 months. So we've had Claire, who has progressed from administrator into a power planning role. We've had a new administrator recently, Laura, and then interestingly enough, we've hired an associate financial planner and a trainee financial planner, sort of to help facilitate our growth plans. So an associate financial planner is effectively in all of our meetings, all of my meetings, and will gradually take on more client responsibilities. And that's Lewis. And then trainee financial planner Jeremy is doing power planning and also sitting in on meetings and learning the trade front of house, so to speak. So that's the team right now. I don't think we're done hiring. I think there's plenty more in the pipeline there as well. But that's the team as we currently have it. Chris, do you want to go through the numbers?
Yeah, and I think just one thing to add on the team. We were readers of books like Traction and Rocket Fuel and the like, and we really sort of recognize the contribution that we each play and how that can complement each other and have great respect for each other's roles. And I think for sort of the first couple of years, it was James and I, and we managed to build a pretty productive lifestyle practice by really sort of leaning into those strengths and I guess knowing our boundaries and our areas of responsibility. So it's an interesting evolution of that as we start to grow a team, and a lot of this is new to us, and it's learning as we go. Where are we today in terms of numbers? We look after just over 100 client families today and just under £100 million of client assets. We have around about, just under £1 million or so per client household. And we charge them on an ongoing basis, depending on their wealth level, either a blended retainer and percentage-based fee or a straight percentage-based fee. But we look after revenue of around about £700,000 on an ongoing basis, and continue to grow relatively aggressively. We've made some number of investments, as James mentioned, around staffing in the business, and are making some other investments and really looking to accelerate that over the next few years, which we could cover if that would be helpful.
That is incredible. I really like this. It seems obvious, this differentiation of roles, where you sort of say, okay, what is you're leaning into your strength, James, you be the rainmaker or the client facing, and Chris, you'd focus on the operational aspect. It's not counterintuitive, it makes sense, but that's not what you see often when you see two advisors setting out or striking out. They more often than not, they both want to advise, and then which means that the operational side of things they have to hire for it, or maybe not well taken care of in the early days.
Yeah, I think every business partnership is going to have its challenges one way or the other. But the key thing when Chris and I met, I think we hit the fundamentals. We viewed the fundamentals in the same way. So, what we would really love to build as a business, generally our values. And I think if you get those two things on the same page, I think everything else comes kind of pretty well downstream of that. Whenever I speak to people about, that working with Chris and it not being, another advisor and all that kind of stuff, I kind of view it as 1 + 1 = 3 is what I always say. And I genuinely feel that way, even today. And we have the same mission, we have the same values, but we have way different skill sets, like diametrically opposing skill sets, which is great. And that's why I think it is a 1 + 1 = 3. Yeah. I don't know if Chris feels the same way or whether he, I'm just being asked.
I think that we've got here, it's remarkable, and it has been 5 years, and we just a couple of days ago finished our 5th trading year, and it's incredible how fast time goes. But I think we were very fortunate to be aligned around, our values, our principles, because those are the things that have seen us through. It's not all been plain sailing, and I'm sure there'll be many things that we'll have to navigate and challenges to consider along the way. But having a good partner on that journey and being aligned on the big things has just made everything else easy in comparison.
No, you guys should really be proud. It's an incredible achievement in 5 years to go from a conversation in the pub about, this, incredibly talented 20-year-olds go from a conversation in the pub to actually build a business, touching on £1 million of revenue, £100 million of, I like to say, hopes and dreams. That because that's what the assets are. It's hopes and dreams with pound signs attached to them, and a team of 6 families who depend on you and the incredible work that you've done. It's amazing.
It's a 5-year overnight success and a lot of hard work in the interim, but organic as it has been, and many more to come, hopefully.
Indeed, and you're only getting started. The beautiful thing about this business of financial planning is, to an extent, it's a game of time, right? And if there is something that you guys have on your side, it's that time. So 5 years in, talk to me about what were the most challenging moments or lessons or experiences that you've gone through in the last 5?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend starting a financial planning firm these days with 0 clients, because you better believe those first 2 years were pretty painful and scary. We had no clients. As I said, we were young. We probably had a reasonable degree of imposter syndrome, but we were incredibly scrappy to try and make it happen. Just as an example, I moved back into my mum's flat to use my house deposit to what was going to be a house deposit to set up the business. Chris remortgaged his house at the time to make it happen. So it felt like a huge jump into the unknown. Felt incredibly risky, but we were stupid enough to do it, and I don't think we regret it. But it's been kind of it was scary then. It's more exciting now. But there's been a huge number of lessons learned along the journey, and we've had I call them speeding tickets. We've had our fair share of speeding tickets along the way. Whether it's been hiring the wrong people, whether it's been just making poor decisions, whether it's taking clients on that just aren't a great fit. We've always looked out and learned those lessons though, and got better on from that. And so, it feels like, in those early days, it was 2 steps forward, 1 step back, a lot of the time. But it's been a wonderful journey, I must admit.
But I think that, just a couple of things that come to mind, lessons I wish I knew before we experienced them. It's going to take longer to get started than we think. It's going to take longer to get clients in. It's going to take longer to get money in. To get traction, it probably took double the amount of time than we thought. We nearly run out of road. Personal cash flow, is often what kills small businesses, and we weren't that far off it. So I don't think we took a salary for 14 months. And I remember just keep putting money into the business. And that was a long period of time, particularly the early stages of COVID, when there was a lot of uncertainty generally. And, I think there were times where we look back and go, was this absolutely the right decision? But as I said earlier, having the right person, having clear principles, having a clear plan of where we want to be, and I guess a why and a how, that really, I guess, stood us through to continue with it. But yeah, those early days were challenging, and I don't think it becomes any less challenging over time. It's just different challenges, and I think at each turn it's a different game we play. It's a different set of challenges and a different set of learnings, and that continues to be the case, and I'm sure will continue to be so.
What conversation took place, with your partners during that time? How do you go and say, we're going to remortgage the house to do this? And then 14 subsequent months of no paycheck.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it's fortunate that we were both that unattractive that neither of us had partners. So we didn't have a voice of reason, which, again, if you were to set up your circumstances, you might think about things differently. But yeah, we were very optimistic, but somewhat naive, I think it's fair to say.
I mean, the other thing was, given we were younger, right, we could afford to take risk. I think, if we'd have been in our mid-40s with 3 kids, a family, and a giant mortgage, wow, I'm not sure whether I'd have been able to stomach the uncertainty there. But we weren't in that place, and we always thought, well, it would be incredibly painful if it didn't work out, but ultimately we'd probably be okay. And so that's what gave us the final push to actually do it. But yeah, we were both single, so we didn't have to have those awkward conversations. Otherwise, it might have been even trickier.
I think we talked about, didn't we? Do we regret trying it and it not working out, or not regret not trying? And we'd rather the first one. It was kind of a two-way door. We were young and dumb enough that we could dust ourselves off and get going again. And, whatever we'd amassed and materialized along that way, it was okay. I could kind of dust myself off with a few years and, a few £1,000s, whatever we put in, to be able to start again. But it felt like the right thing to do. It was an itch that wasn't going to go away, and I think we would regret not trying, even if we didn't succeed.
It's a powerful framework, Chris. This idea of regret minimization, which is like, what would I regret most on my deathbed? Would I regret having started a business and it failing, or would I regret not having started at all? And it's such a powerful framework.
Sure.
Do you think that it is too hard, especially for younger people, to start financial planning businesses? Or is this just the way it has to be?
Maybe I'll go first and Chris, you can give yours. Yes and no, I think, from my point of view. Yes, from where you're just going to lack it. You're lacking in experience. You're lacking probably in business knowledge. You may be lacking in confidence in terms of how, when, where to find clients. So I think there are certainly challenges with it. On the flip side, there's probably when you're younger, you have more wiggle room to get it wrong, I think, than, as I said, when you're in a different life stage. So I think it's person by person dependent. I think it may have got even harder, as time has gone on. We're a directly authorized business. I remember that was kind of a painful process to go through that. From what I hear now, it's gone to a whole nother level. So who knows who knows what that's like these days. But I think there's always a reason to do it, and there's always a reason not to do it. From my point of view, I think if you really have a vision that you want to do something differently, and you have a clear plan of how to get there, then I think it's entirely reasonable you take that risk on if you've got the appetite for it. And we did then. So I think it's really difficult to say whether it's good, bad, easier, harder. But I think there's pros and cons to starting sooner or starting later. But I think it's only getting more difficult.
I think maybe a similar question is, is it getting harder for people to get started within the profession or with their own business? And James mentioned, the barriers have increased somewhat, if you're looking to start your own business around cost or applications and adequacy and the like. But I remember it being difficult to get started. It's the chicken and the egg of, do you have the experience and how do you get the experience? And I don't think there's any easy answers. There's some wonderful organizations like Next Gen Planners that are, fostering a community and developing pathways to smooth that transition to within financial planning. But I think there's still a long way to go. I think it's a very difficult profession to get into for a number of reasons. And I don't think we have any answers, but it's situational, to James's point. If you can really have a go at this and really apply yourself, I think you can break in, but more does need to be done to make it more accessible.
I think the other thing that I should mention is you need your fair share of luck as well. Like, we can plan everything out perfectly. That's not the way it happened. It might sound like it. We've had luck, good, bad, and ugly, but you need a bit of luck to help you along in certain instances. But the one thing that we're trying to do now is also, create that home for some people that may have thought about starting their own businesses, but actually would rather find a solid firm that they love to work in and for, to ply their trade and really and align with their values and what they want to do and all that kind of thing. So we kind of know, now we've gone through that, I'm not sure we would do it again. But we also want to, we want to be a place for, people who were maybe in our shoes back then, to give them another option.
So how are you thinking about growth from here? So we've got you, James, as the as the lead financial planner, and then you have Lewis as the associate, and Jeremy. How are you thinking about how you scale, grow the business from this point? Is it just, sorry, I say just, is it, mainly transitioning clients to those two, or is there a different framework? How are you thinking about this?
We're learning it as we go, to be honest. But yeah, there will be an element of client transition where that works for the client. But there's also an element of clients that we are going to take on in the future will be managed by those guys and myself as well. We very much have a team approach though, right? So it's not just kind of all about the advisor. We follow, or we plan to follow, that pod approach with the classic kind of lead planner, para planner, client manager or administrator. And so we're a team of six. We're a team of six now with effectively one lead planner, and that will gradually change into two pods, and then longer term 3 pods. So and there will be some there'll be some staffing requirements there, and then some new people to bring in to make that happen. But it will predominantly be by clients transitioning, and new client growth as well, a blend between the two.
I think we listen and learn from others as well, who know far more than we do. And, I've had the privilege to do some work with the likes of Brett Davison and a few others, and some of the research that they put out around how to scale a proper financial planning business. We're very humble to say that we don't have all the answers, but we're open and curious and adaptive, to try different things. And some of the things James is talking about there, sort of splitting out servicing and sales and thinking about those as distinct functions, perhaps within the business, to be able to, I guess, specialize to some degree and really make sure, that everybody's clear around their responsibilities and their accountabilities as we grow as a team. We also think about how do we attract the right type of inquiries to the business, and how do we make sure we have really strong attraction to those. And we think about some of the work that we do with other professionals, some of the work that we do with clients, providing a wonderful service to position ourselves as a choice for those prospective clients as and when they seek to engage an advisor. But it's one by one, and it's doing a good job. I don't think there's any magic bullet. I think there's 100 silver bullets, and we have to execute excellently on many of them at the same time. And it's about showing up, caring deeply, being compassionate, doing a good job, and doing that consistently year after year. Maybe that's the slow game to get there, but that feels like the right way to go about it.
What has been the most effective source of new clients? How do they find you? What do you do to make yourself visible to clients?
So we track this data pretty thoroughly and look at it every week. Actually, the usual channels we have clients through. So client referrals is the one that is always really great to see, and high quality. Introductions is always kind of like what we are striving for and after. But actually, unlike a lot of businesses, most of our new inquiries come from, for want of a better phrase, our digital marketing. And so, we did a huge amount of work in years 1 and 2 around building, a great brand, putting content out there on our website. So, we've marketed ourselves as best as we can, and so we have a pretty significant lead flow into the business, and ultimately, people often hit our website, check that out, and there is an option in there to book an initial meeting, which is often a 20-minute call, and that has been the driver of, I would say, 80-90% of our client growth. We've had well over 1,000 initial meetings since we started the business, and many we're not the right fit for, and they're not the right fit for us. But that's really kind of where I guess the fuel that drove the Frazer James car sort of came from.
And the honest answer is, Abraham, we didn't have a clue how to find prospective clients, but so we tried everything, figuratively throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what would stick. And interestingly, a lot of the things that we thought would work didn't, and a lot of the things we thought wouldn't work did. So it was a case of cutting what wasn't working and doubling down on what was working. And I think that's a process of evolution over time, and having that general curiosity in our approach to the game of business, and always trying to learn and listen, adapt, and put a little tweak on it. But that continues to be the case, and we continue to adapt and trying to grow and evolve, as the landscape changes. But I guess what got us here, may not get us there, and we're always looking for the next evolution of that.
Yeah, it's incredible. So I really like your website. It's very clear. It's very approachable. The phone numbers are there for them to get in touch and book. I love, which I've commented about previously, which is these testimonial videos that you get out there with clients talking about their experience with you. So I guess the question then that follows up from this digital marketing thing is there like a regular content that you are drip feeding out there? How often do you post these things? Or is it kind of one and done? You've done all the hard work and it's just producing is generating the leads from there.
I don't think we could ever rest on our laurels on this. It remains a very important part of the business, and I think we will always continue to invest in the brand that we have as a business, internally and externally, and the assets that we have to help to generate business for us and position us as an advisor of choice. The honest answer is, I think the best content that we can put out is content from our clients. Now, whether that's testimonial videos that you've mentioned, and we're actually due to schedule in the next couple of weeks another round of those from another subset of clients, whether we have reviews from clients that we publicize, whether we have feedback from clients and case studies, we found that content for those who are in market and serious about considering engaging a financial planner. Social proof remains a really, really important point. So we think about sort of the buyer funnel. Those who may just be curious and just interested in getting some information to their questions, and those who are ready to engage a financial planner, and what might be the information or the content or to help them make a decision, I guess, to progress down there. So I don't think there is one answer that covers all bases, and I think it's sort of a funnel of content delivered in different ways at different times, that helps people nudge along at that point in time. I think the thing that's always remained true is we try to be helpful and relevant for people and, stay top of mind through them. So whether that's regular content through newsletters, through social, through blog updates, through video, but trying to remain, I guess, within their consciousness. So as and when, it is the right time, we are considered, to be one of the advisors of choice.
And James, who does this? Did you say 20 minutes conversation? Who does them? Is that you? Is that one of the associate planner?
Yeah, no, it's me. And just to be clear, by that point, there is some probably some screening that goes on. Right? Can we help this person? There's we use Calendly, which we love as a bit of tech that filters and tries to basically glean whether we're likely to be able to help that person and whether they would be a great fit for us. And then should they get through that, then ultimately that's a 20-minute conversation, which inevitably ends up twice as long as that. And it's just a bit of a right fit conversation is how we frame it. And then subject to that, we might book a bit of a longer discovery meeting Should it feel like a good potential? And if not, we always try and sort of leave people better than they found us, and point them in a different direction, whether it's suggesting they speak to another advisor or whatever else.
It's an incredibly powerful funnel, and I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but I'm thinking about it. You said we've done 1,000 of this in the last 5 years, give or take. So that's like 200 of these things each year on average. I know it doesn't work that way. And then you said earlier, Chris, that you have about 100 client families. Now, I'm just inferring 20 minutes conversation with 1,000 people generated, 100 client household, which means that you screened out 90% of people that you talk to and only end up with 10%. And you built it so 5 years, a £100 million AUM business. It's incredible.
I think you touch upon something that we've really failed to do over time, though, which is improve that pipeline function so that actually we're not wasting those people's or our own time, that not the 90%, and that continues to be like a really big challenge that we're looking at. But until you've really sat down and spoken to someone and found out more about them, it's incredibly difficult to know whether we could be a good fit and whether what we deliver is what they need and what they want. So we'll keep trying, but yeah, our conversion rate from inquiry to client is probably the lowest of any financial planning business in the country, I would guess.
I wasn't thinking about it that way, though. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about it that way. I was thinking about how actually, frankly, effective it is. Because you might have a process that maybe screens out more people and you speak to less people, but then maybe you spend more time in that initial initial conversation, and I don't know necessarily whether it improves the conversion rate, but it strikes me that the numbers speak for itself. You've got an incredible business. So,
I think in an ideal world, Abraham, we would have had 100 inquiries and 100 clients. But,
no one does.
This is a game of numbers to some degree.
Absolutely.
We one thing we've always been mindful of as a business, and even from the start, perhaps to our detriment, is around being very clear around who we do our best work with, the value that we can add, and being honest with ourselves around that's not everybody and it's not every time. And that's been to our detriment on occasion, but we do think that serves us well in the long term. Every yes is a no and every no is a yes. We do think about opportunity costs and trade-offs and try and think about this, I guess, from a slightly longer term perspective, not just that sort of shorter term sales mindset.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. So as we start to wrap this up, I've got a couple more questions for you. Let's talk about talent. Talent is a big thing. You've gone through a hiring spree, bringing 3 people in the last 6 months or so, I think you said. How have you found that process of attracting talent, hiring people? What mistakes have you made? What have you learned? What needs to change?
Yeah, I'll give it a go. So there's probably 2 questions there. Like, how do we find them, and then how do we look after them? And we certainly have made mistakes on both areas. And I don't think we're too humble to put our hands up and say we've still got work to do there. I think when I look at the best financial planning businesses, one of the skills they have is they're masters of recruitment and retention. And they put as much time and effort into recruitment and hiring and creating a great place to work as perhaps they do around other areas of their business. And we have been guilty of perhaps underinvesting in this at times. One thing that became very clear to us when we were hiring is the importance of brand having a brand that people associate with and people want to work for. Much like it, having a brand can be helpful for prospective clients, it's helpful for prospective employees. And when you're supply constrained and you have an excess of demand, the real constraint in the business is not being able to find the right people. And we've been guilty of hiring somebody and trying to find somebody, as opposed to being more thoughtful and intentional around trying to find the right fit of people to the business. And the cost of getting that wrong, and it was us getting it wrong, not them, but is significant on both sides. And I think we've borne that cost and kind of carrying some scars. So we spend a lot more time now around sort of the hiring and the recruitment process. And we've done a lot of work with other organizations to be able to help us become better at this really, really important skill set. But the honest answer is it's still a challenge, particularly when you think about administrators, for example, who may not be tuning in to a lot of these financial planning podcasts or attending these conferences and events. And these people are hard to reach in market. And particularly if you want an excellent administrator, they're often at an excellent firm and are very well looked after. So we continue to try and refine and improve our offering as an employer, and the culture and the values and the career path options and the recognition and the reward that we can provide prospective employees to create a great home for those people who can be harder to reach. We don't have the answer here, and it continues to be a work in progress. And as we look forward over the next year, that's something that remains a real priority for us as a business.
I think just to add on what Chris said, I think there's a couple of things from my point of view. We really want what we call A players, because if we're going to deliver our growth plans, we need very, very high quality talent, as you say. And in order to find that, I think the key learning is that we need to have a lot of patience, and it takes time, and it's got to be a right fit. And we've also got to be, an A-star business to work for as well. It can't be a mismatch. And so we want to, treat the staff in ultimately the way that they deserve. And that is where I think we'll get, we'll keep building on the great team that we've got now, and continue the, what I think is a pretty fantastic culture as well. So, the biggest thing that Chris and I struggle with is patience across many fronts, and the talent acquisition is certainly one of them.
Well, when you figure out that patience,
we should be asking you, Abraham, with the growth of timeline, shouldn't we? Yeah,
I've got zero patience, but when you figure it out, please do let me know. I want a bit of that potion or whatever it is that instill patience in people. So let's fast forward, to 5 years time. So it's Frazer James's 10th anniversary. You've been running this business now for a decade. Describe the business to me. Describe the field, the people.
Sure.
All that stuff.
Yeah. I think in terms of what we're delivering, I don't think it's a million miles away from where we are now. I think we probably expand our sort of suite of services to some degree. Like, we work with a huge number of business owners, right? And that's kind of like where we'll probably be taking on more clients in the future. There's tax services in there. There's kind of a broader service set that's needed there. And so I think that will be something to consider and work towards. The other thing is around what we've just talked about, which is building the team out in order to facilitate the growth. We do want to grow. We do want to take more clients on. We got to a bit of a T-junction 18 months ago, 2 years ago, where we thought, do we just want to keep this as a lifestyle business? And we're going through Brett Davidson's Uncover Your Business Potential course, and he kind of challenged our thinking on that. And we've laid out a really clear kind of hiring plan now to go, well, actually, no, we we do not want to stay static. We really want to help more people deliver something better and better to those clients, and have fun along the way, I suppose. So that's the plan, anyway. Yes, Chris.
I think we want to have, if there's one word, we want to have impact. We want to have impact with clients. We want to have impact with the team. I guess from a personal ego, we want to look back at any point in time and be proud of the work that we're doing and the reputation that's being built. So I think as long as we're doing that, as long as we're finding a great home for the people who work with us, as long as we continue to provide a great service for clients, we'll be proud of the work that we do at whatever size or scale. But we are trying to, run a marathon here. And I think it's important to kind of be present and focused and enjoy. This is a really, really enjoyable journey for us. And we're just going to continue doing, I think, what's hopefully already working, but continue to refine the 1% every day and try and get better each day.
I love it. It's really uplifting speaking to you guys, watching from a distance, the journey that you've been on. Is there anything I should have asked you that I haven't? Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that I have missed?
I think from my point of view, I think we've covered all bases, Abraham.
Chris?
Nothing at all. No, it's been great to talk through. I don't think we have anything. We've past, present, and future. I'm sure perhaps we can get together in 5 years and tell you how different the story's been and unfolded in ways we never expected. But that is the unpredictability of life and the role of luck. So I look forward to having that conversation then.
Well, let's make it a date. 10 years time when we celebrate a decade of Frazer James as a business. Chris, James, it's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your journey, for being honest and transparent about the journey that you've been on. And thank you for coming on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Abraham. Great to see you.
Thank you, Abraham. And thank you. And thanks to Timeline for everything that you do. You have a really positive impact on our business in many ways and our clients, and you're making an impact in this profession. So thanks to you.
You are very kind. You're too kind, Chris. Thank you. That's a wrap on today's show. Massive thanks to my production crew, especially Jake Osha, Melissa Canham, and the entire team. And of course, to our sponsor, Timeline, the market leading provider of integrated planning technology and model portfolio service to advisors. I do hope you've enjoyed today's show. Head over to Apple Podcast and give us your review there. Until next time, goodbye.